thank you for joining me for week 6 of the Series 1 lecture series that I'm doing each Friday night. So tonight's talk is about advanced astral physics, and I'm David Little, Swami Manamurti Saraswati, and I'm going to just take you through what I've got planned for tonight, week 6. So as I mentioned, this talk or lecture is on advanced astral physics. So this is from series 1, this lecture series of the canon, and the lecture series is called the Ascension Formula. So tonight we cross the midpoint of the canon. So it's 12 weeks, this series. So this is week 6. So we cross the midpoint of the canon. The first 5 weeks were about perception, learning to see, to stabilize, and to recognize the astral layer as an actual environment rather than an impression or a metaphor. Tonight, the work becomes technical. Week 6 is where we shift from experience to physics, from what it feels like to how it works. For many of you, this will be the moment where the last 6 months of practice begin to make structural sense. The astral is not a dream state, not imagination, and not symbolic projection. It is a law-governed layer with its own architecture, its own mechanics, and its own constraints. Tonight, we explore 5 foundations. 1. The law governing the astral dimension. What holds it together? What stabilizes it? And why it behaves consistently across practitioners. 2. The structure of non-local perception. How you perceive without eyes, how information arrives and why it arrives in coherent packets. 3. The mechanics of symbolic transmission. Why symbols appear, how they function, and why they are not messages but structural artifacts. 4. The driver-observer architecture, the 2-layer system inside you that makes astral navigation possible. 5. The physics of movement, why intention moves you, why attention locks you, and why the astral responds to orientation rather than force. By the end of tonight, you will understand why the astral behaves the way it does, not as belief, not as mysticism, but as a coherent environment with predictable behavior. This is the turning point of Series 1. From here, the canon becomes progressively more structured. Week 7, next week, moves into causal architecture. Week 8, into the mechanics of identity. But none of that can be understood without the physics that we established tonight. But before we begin, I want to acknowledge something important. Earlier today, the origin story, my autobiography actually, titled Autobiography of Australian Yogi, the Surfing Swami, was formally published on Zenodo with a permanent DOI and also released on academia.edu, and on Monday it will be published on Amazon. That story is the ground from which this entire body of work grew. Tonight's lecture stands on that foundation, so you'll get an idea if you want to check out my autobiography of my background and what I've been doing all my life, the sort of life I've led. So that's available free. Anybody can download it from Zenodo or Academia. and next week it'll be commercially available on Amazon. So settle in, take a breath, let the system quieten, and let's step into the architecture behind everything that you've been experiencing so far. Welcome to week 6 of the QEEU 12-week series, Advanced Astral Physics. So let's begin. In week 4, we explored the multidimensional brain, the interface between layers of consciousness. In week 5, we entered astral cognition, the first expansion of perception beyond the physical mental domain. Tonight, we move deeper into the architecture itself. This is advanced astral physics, the laws, structures, and mechanisms that govern the astral dimension and shape the evolution of consciousness. This is the week where the canon shifts from experience to mechanism, from perception to structure, from intuition to architecture. One, the astral dimension as a structured field. The astral dimension is not a dreamscape or a symbolic projection. It is a structured field governed by laws and that are consistent as physical physics, though operating at a different frequency. The astral field contains energetic currents, dimensional gradients, symbolic architectures, and non-local information patterns, emotional intuitive signatures. These structures are stable, repeatable, and perceivable when the subtle body is clear. 2. The laws of astral physics. Astral physics operates through 3 primary laws. Resonance. Like frequencies attract and amplify each other. Permeability. Layers become accessible when knots loosen. Non-locality. Information is not bound by space or time. These laws explain intuition, symbolic perception, emotional transmission, astral movement, and dimensional access. They are the foundation of astral cognition. 3. Dimensional knot theory and astral mechanics. Dimensional knot theory becomes essential here. A knot, a granthi, is a binding point where astral currents constrict and dimensional access narrows. When knots are tight, astral perception is disordered or distorted. Emotional residue dominates. Symbolic intelligence collapses. The mind becomes reactive. When knots loosen, astral currents flow freely. Perception becomes accurate. Intuition stabilizes. The system becomes receptive to higher layers. Astral physics is a study of how these constraints shape perception. A dimensional knot is a constriction point in the subtle system where astral currents narrow, pressure increases, and access to the next layer becomes restricted. It behaves structurally like vasoconstriction in physiology, not in the physical vessels, but in the way flow tightens, channels narrow, and movement becomes limited. 4. The astral body as a conductor. The astral body is the conductor of astral physics. It is composed of channels, junctions, currents, fields, and vibrational layers. When the astral body is clear, information flows cleanly. Emotional signatures become readable. Symbolic structures become coherent. Non-local impressions become precise. When it is blocked, the entire system becomes noisy. This is why subtle body hygiene is essential. 5. Subtle body hygiene as astral maintenance. Daily practice. Kriya and sadhana functions as astral maintenance. It clears residue, loosens knots, stabilizes currents, increases permeability, reduces distortion. This is not spiritual discipline. It is energetic physics. A clean astral body perceives accurately. A blocked astral body perceives through distortion. This distinction defines the difference between imagination and astral cognition. 6. The multidimensional brain and astral translation. The multidimensional brain translates astral information into cognition. It does this through gamma coherence, hemispheric integration, subtle body junctions, and intuitive pathways. When the brain and astral body synchronize, the practitioner enters the zone state, a condition where astral information becomes clear, rapid, symbolic, precise, actionable. This is the cognitive signature of advanced astral physics. 7. Astral topology and dimensional movement. The astral dimension has a topology, a structure of gradients, layers, currents, nodes, fields. Movement through this topology is not physical, it is vibrational. You move by shifting frequency, altering attention, loosening knots, stabilizing channels. This is why advanced practitioners can move through the astral without physical effort. Movement is a change in resonance, not location. 8. Non-local information and astral access. Astrophysics explains how non-local information becomes accessible. Information in the astral field is immediate, simultaneous, holographic, and multi-layered. When the system is clear, the practitioner can access emotional signatures, symbolic structures, intuitive insights, dimensional patterns, oversoul communication. This is the foundation of higher cognition. 9. Why advanced astrophysics matters to QEEU. This module is essential because it explains how astral cognition works, why intuition becomes reliable, how dimensional access increases, why the zone state emerges, and how Homo Lumina navigates the multiverse, how the canon becomes experiential. It is the bridge between subtle body science and multiverse architecture. Without advanced astrophysics, the higher teachings of QEEU cannot be understood. Week 6, closing speech. Tonight we have entered the structural mechanics of the astral dimension. This is the architecture that underlies intuition, symbolic intelligence, and non-local perception. Next week, in week 7, we enter the multiverse theory, the dimensional framework that connects all layers of consciousness into a single coherent system and the causal dimension. As we close tonight's session, I want you to sit with one thing. The astral is not an escape, not a fantasy, and not a projection. It is a lawful layer of human system. And once you understand its physics, the entire canon begins to align. Everything we covered tonight, non-local perception, symbolic transmission, the driver observer architecture, and the mechanics of movement is not theoretical. It is the groundwork for the next 2 weeks, where we move into the causal and then the identity layers. Take your time with this material. Rewatch the session if you need to. Let the architecture settle before you try to apply it. Thank you for your discipline, your presence, and your willingness to step into this work with clarity and humility. This concludes week 6, Advanced Astral Physics. I'll see you next week. So thank you, everybody. I'll see you next week. Arion.